tell you a little bit about my backstory. And what's interesting is how I got into this work of working with senior executives around the world, which I've really been involved with for the past 20 years. But if I go back, I had joined a small specialized consulting firm called Bates. It's no longer around. It's a wonderful place, but it was founded by a woman named Suzanne Bates, who was a former television news anchor. And so the business initially was about supporting senior executives in their work, presenting on camera, talking to the media, having to give big speeches and keynotes. And I had grown up in the consulting world. I had done some of that work because I had left that world and actually wrote a book. And so I had to give lots of talks and speeches myself. I had to work with the media myself. And so you would have thought by joining this very specialized consulting firm that works with senior executives, I would have been very, very confident, strong, comfortable working with that audience. But here's the image that I want you to have. Picture like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, maybe in the middle of the movie, if you've seen the movie. This is before she realizes that the wizard is just another human being. This is when she's still struggling to string a couple of sentences together to be able to work effectively with her wizard, if you will. No kidding, that was me. And I joined this firm and I was really struggling. And I think what was happening to me is what I see happen to many, many of my clients, which is that I had bought into this really pervasive myth, narrative, I think that we have about C-suite and executive leadership. Now, my version of that myth sounds something like executive leadership is unreasonable, they're difficult, they ask very tough questions. Everything that goes in front of them must be perfect. And good luck even getting in front of them because, of course, their time is so limited. And that story, which sort of sounds ridiculous, and that may not be true for you, but I will tell you, the lot of companies I work with, that story is very much alive and well. And I say this because what it leads to are all kinds of unproductive, counterproductive behaviors, because frankly, underneath it, like we've got this story in our minds. So one data point for you, Bain conducted a fascinating study about the amount of time we spend inside companies preparing to meet with our executives. They cite one company where employees spend collectively 300,000 hours in a year, 300,000 hours preparing executives for one weekly meeting. In other words, executive team at this company meets weekly, and the collective effort of pulling together the reporting, the documents, practice, all of those things that enable that executive team to have a successful meeting cost the company collectively 300,000 hours a year, which is crazy. Those are hours that we could be spending running our businesses, growing, innovating. And so what's behind that are a number of things. And I'm certainly not suggesting we're not thoughtful and prepare for our senior audiences, but back to that like crazy story, that story of everything needing to be perfect and having a lot of thoughts about our executive team. So again, yes, we want to prepare for executive leadership, and they can be tough and discerning and unreasonable and all the things, as can other human beings inside organizations. And so this was me. And I spent a lot of time preparing, not succeeding. And finally, my CEO came to me and she said, "You have got to figure this out or this is not going to work out for you." Because remember, I wasn't just responsible for working with our executives and delivering the work. I had to grow our business. Like I had a multi-million-dollar sales number that I and our team had to hit, and I was responsible for that. So this was no joke. I was going to lose my job if I could not elevate in these areas. And so I find myself one day being asked to meet with the CEO of a new company. So I felt like, okay, all right, Elizabeth, this is your opportunity to kind of get back on track. And no kidding, I walk into this CFO's office, and it's one of these office buildings where the elevator opens and like you're just in the office. It was a huge space. It felt like as big as my house. I mean, absolutely this enormous, stunning room. And I'm sure that showed on my face, kind of awestruck, but also very intimidated and anxious. And the CFO looked at me and he said, Elizabeth, this is not Oz. And he said, and I am not the wizard. And then he said, I am just somebody trying to do a good job here. And then he said, so can you help me or not? And I just remember thinking, okay, um, good for me to hear that. Because it sort of woke me up to the idea that, yes, you and I care about the same thing, which is, of course, we are both trying to create value and do a good job inside this organization. But sometimes we do have to be reminded of that. It also just immediately humanized him, but also instantly created what I call much more of a peer to peer dynamic versus me being Dorothy, like looking up at the wizard, me thinking somehow I had to be performative and sort of forgetting that very obvious piece. The other thing, though, in his comment, can you help me or not, which kind of got me, I don't know, my back up a little bit. I thought, I absolutely can help you. And I'll tell you, working with leaders, there is really nothing more frustrating and honestly painful to feel like you have been underestimated, overlooked, that you absolutely know you can help someone, that you know you're right for a role, you know that whatever it is you're leading, you're working on, the value is there. And they're asking you, like, so, like, are you going to be able to do this or not? They don't necessarily see it. And so that image that I often describe now as the sun that is covered by some clouds. And I think this is an idea I just want us to carry through today and also in the coming weeks. The idea that the sun is out there. It's right here in this room, CFO, in my case. That value, that ability to drive results. In my case, to be a partner to this leader, all of that I was fully capable of doing, and I knew that. But there was like this cloud cover that was preventing him from seeing that. No matter how much I felt the value was there, the results were there, whatever the case may be, I really had to understand the cloud cover. And so, I want you to start to think about this idea of the sun and that cloud cover. So, let me go back to this concept then of the first is I say practice constraint. I'm going to be sharing a lot of concepts and ideas, but just stay focused on that one goal. Take the content that feels most relevant and meaningful for that one goal and like just filter everything else out. The other thing I would say is the importance of daily action. One of the concepts that I like is just having a list, or as I like to call a little list, meaning just very small actions that you have the bandwidth and opportunity to apply consistently. And listen, I've spoken to all of you. You're all very high performers. The fact is, at your level, it's all about just very small little actions. So it doesn't take a lot, but it's that consistent application and refinement. And I also say the commitment, and all that means is just giving yourself the space to absorb this, to be intentional about it. So if that means once a week, you carve out time on your calendar to really sort through, like, what have we been discussing here to do that? All right.